G'day guys, LV here, and I want to have a quick chat about Ford's recent announcement of a Ranger Super Duty. And I just wanted to share my thoughts on what's been announced because I think it's bloody exciting. And I'm going to use a word that I don't use much, but I think it's an absolute game changer for the dual cab ute market. Ford announced earlier this week they're launching a Super Duty in 2026. This thing is going to be based on a standard Ranger, probably very much similar in size. There's not too much specs out there yet, so we're just speculating, but what they have told us that it will have 4,500 kilo GVM, 4,500 kilo towing capacity, and 8,000 kilo GCM. Now, those kind of figures straight from the factory is bloody brilliant because that means you don't have to worry about voiding your warranty by getting aftermarket GVM upgrades and whatnot, like I've got on mine. But 8,000 kilo GCM, which is pretty big, but obviously that doesn't add up. So you have to balance it out. If you're going to be towing 4.5 ton, you'll be limited to a 3.5 ton GVM. Or if you have the ute fully loaded to its 4.5 ton GVM capacity, your towing will be limited to 3.5 ton. And of course, you can have 4 ton on the car and 4 ton towing and any combination in between them, which I think is a bloody awesome idea. And I've been kind of waiting for someone to come up with an option for this since I started caravanning back in 2018. Always struggling with weights. You see so many options out there in the aftermarket supplies for all different makes of utes of GVM upgrades. So obviously the desire is out there for people to increase their GVMs. And you can go to an American truck, but to get the payloads you really need, we're talking about the 250s, 350s, and the 150s or the 1500 series just doesn't cut it because the payload is actually probably worse than a standard dual cab ute. So it really does make sense for them to bring out a normal Australian size ute that can do 4.5 ton GVM. Now in Australia, anything over 4.5 ton, you need a light truck license for. So that's why I slot it right up to that maximum limit. Just to give you an idea of what that really means in the real world, comparing to my XLT cab chassis here, this one here came out with a standard GVM of 3280 and a GCM of 6400. So you can see it's a much bigger step up to a 4500 GVM, 4500 towing capacity, and an 8000 GCM. Obviously, what we don't really know is what's going to be the tear for the new Super Duty. So going off my XLT cab chassis again, this is a curb weight of 2160. So on the standard GVM, I get about a 1100 kilo payload. So obviously the Super Duty will have beefed up suspension, beefed up chassis, possibly a chassis extension from factory. If it comes down to under 2500 curb weight, that will give you a 2 ton payload, which is unreal. And a 2500 curb weight should be pretty achievable. That's an extra 350 kilos on top of the standard cab chassis, which is roughly what you'd expect for a bit of beefed up chassis and a beefed up suspension components. But one of the biggest limitations I found in standard utes is actually the rear axle capacity. On the standard XLT, the front axle capacity is 1490 and the rear is 1959. But for me, when I bought the Ranger, I went with a Lovells GVM GCM upgrade pre-rego. What that means is that I get a 3700 GVM, 7200 GCM. My axle capacities have increased to 1640 on the front and 2120 on the rear. Now, to give you a rough idea, the way that my ute is set up, if I'm going away camping with a rooftop tent, canopy full of all our stuff, a 60-litre under tray of water all full, I come in at about 3,500 kilos on the GVM. But when I'm away caravanning, I don't need as much stuff inside the canopy. I have the caravan, of course, so I end up coming in at about 3,600 GVM on the car and towing 2.7 ton. And in that configuration, my rear axle comes in at about 2080 kilos, so 2,080 kilos, which is pretty close to getting up to its increased axle capacity. I really hope that the Super Duty Ranger will have an axle capacity of around 2,800, even up to 3 ton. That would mean you can have a lot of weight on the back of the ute where it normally goes. Now, Ford haven't officially mentioned anything about the powertrain, but I reckon the standard V6 turbo that comes in the current XLT, man, that thing has got some power, eh? So I reckon as it is, or maybe a few extra tweaks, maybe a second turbo or a bigger turbo, something like that. But I have no doubt the V6 will handle all that weight. After all, there's already companies out there doing second stage manufacturing with the same engine, doing over 4.5 ton GVM and 4.5 ton towing. Mostly the six-wheeler conversion, they can get it on a light truck license to have all that, or on a standard license, you can go up to 4.5 ton GVM and 3.5 ton towing. So I have no doubt that the standard V6 will do the job quite well with a few little tweaks. If not, they have the 3.5 litre twin turbo V6 petrol they could put in, but I really reckon that the V6 diesel, that'll be the go. Of course, I think they're gonna have to do something about the cooling of the transmission and probably something with the radiator. But anyways, I'm really excited to see what the final specs are with the Super GT Ford Ranger. And even though I probably won't be able to afford to get one straight off launch, once this thing is out of warranty, maybe around 2030, I reckon that's what I'll be getting into. Anyways, guys, there's my thoughts on the new Ford Ranger Super Duty. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you want to see this thing in action around Australia, check out some of my videos on this channel. We catch you in the next one.